Remember last year's amazing trip? That cute first birthday party? All those photos, all those memories can be freed from your phone with a Shutterfly photo book. Rediscover and share your favorite moments with those you love. You'll be amazed how easy it is to make a photo book with Shutterfly and enjoy it for years to come. Get 40% off orders over $29 with code POD40 at Shutterfly.com and make something that means something.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
It's the Larry Kudlow Show. Free market prosperity starts here. Now, here's Larry Kudlow.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Larry Kudlow. By the way, you can get this show live streaming on the Internet. It's LarryKudlowShow.com, LarryKudlowShow.com. And during the week, please join us on Fabulous Fox Business Network. The name of the show is Kudlow. 4 to 5 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And if you can't make it at 4, well, please text your favorite 9-year-old, and she will show you how to DVR the show. It's real simple. Anyway, let's talk about politics and the economy with my great friend Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. He's the author most recently of Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. Steve, welcome back. Thanks for doing this.
Good to be with you.
So I've got a story here. Greg Ip of the Wall Street Journal writing a couple of days ago. And Ira Stoll actually wrote for the New York Sun and Substack the same. Trump's new economist makes the case for 20% tariffs and also wants to devalue the dollar, saying that will help fix the trade deficit and unfair trading practices. Now, he wrote this in a memo. Steve Myron, M-I-R-A-N, he's the new head of the Council of Economic Advisors. Actually, he's saying the U.S. could be better off with average tariffs of around 20% and as high as 50% compared to the current 2%. We don't know what this really means, but he wrote about this not too long ago. Strikes me as something we don't want to do, but I could live with a 10% universal tariff. I know you don't like that either. 20%, but the devaluation of the dollar. He also writes about selling gold, okay, and I guess using it to buy bonds of foreign currencies, but he wants to devalue the dollar. This just strikes me as just all wrong, Steve, but I know you've written and thought a lot about these things. What do you make of that?
It's very strange. The average tariff for the U.S. today on imports is 2%. So raising it to 20 to 50 would be devastating, upsetting supply chains. Selling gold, I think the best way to describe that is spending gold. You put that to people, they say, oh, why do we want to spend our gold? So that idea is going to go nowhere. And devaluing the dollar is the precise definition of inflation. You have, as you know, two kinds of inflations, non-monetary, which you get when you have shutdowns or natural disasters and the like, disrupting production, that sends up prices. But monetary inflation, which the Fed can control, if it knew what it was doing, is when you create too much of a currency, usually by devaluing the currency, usually by creating too much of it. So he's stoking inflation, pouring gasoline on a fire. I just hope this is just a voice that President Trump wants to have around in the round table. You've been through it where they hash things out, so you got this one view. But I hope that is not a basis for administrative policy. And that gets to the very real question of the timing of the tax cuts. renewing the 2017 tax cuts, which is essential, and getting new ones on the books to give a new boost to the economy.
Yeah, it's funny. Let me just come back. I want to talk about the tax cuts in a moment, but I had Senator Marsha Blackburn on the show earlier.
Yes, and I heard that, and I did not like well, I hope her for the best. She's great running for governor, but I share your sentiment. We love her in the Senate.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? You have that. She's become such an important voice in the Senate, conservative voice. I really love her in the Senate.
Yeah, and she would have made a good VP for Trump. She's knowledgeable, a fighter, and has the right principles. So, yeah, good for Tennessee, but we love her in the Senate.
Yeah, 100%. Good for you. The other thing she mentioned, almost as a throwaway, but I picked up on it, the idea, one big, beautiful bill, getting the tax cuts in the first reconciliation bill, it seemed like she was saying that what they would do is extend all the Trump tax cuts in the first bill, in the one big beautiful bill, and then dealing with his additional tax cuts, the tips and the overtime and the Social Security for seniors, might come later. So you'd have a split. And interestingly, Mike Crapo, Senator Crapo, going to run the Senate Finance Committee, argues that if you did that, extending the bill is current policy, it's permanent policy, it doesn't need to be priced out by all these dummies at the Congressional Budget Office or the Joint Tax Committee, which will say it's going to burn a hole in the deficit. Maybe that's the way they'll do it. They're just extending the tax cuts in the first bill and then dealing with the additional tax cuts later. Does that make any sense?
On paper, it does. Take what you can at the beginning, preserve what you got in 2017 so you don't have a disaster later. But you've seen it firsthand how Congress works. It's very hard to get anything through, and trying to get more than one reconciliation bill through is not going to be easy. And if everyone knows we got to renew the 2017 cuts, and the part of the problem is we cannot have one Republican defection. We have no majority in the House, whereas when you were there, we could lose several Republicans and still get the legislation through. And so what I worry about is that if we don't get everything done at the beginning, trying to go for a second round where you're going to have the blue staters, our fellow blue stater Republicans, going for a big increase in SALT. You're going to have every other special interest in there. It's going to be a hodgepodge, and we may end up with nothing. And one of my big disappointments, which I thought would have been a no-brainer, is a reduction in the capital gains levy. Deficit hawks should love it because it instantly brings revenue in as people realize gains. When you're not punished so much on realizing gains, you cash them in and invest the money elsewhere. Every time that rate has been cut, revenues have instantly gone up, but that seems to be going nowhere right now.
Well, we have to talk that up and do some lobbying, socialize that, because I think cap gains relief would be really a terrific idea. What did you think of the Scott Bessent hearings, our new Treasury man?
Well, I thought he handled himself well, and I think part of your theme is that all of our nominees held themselves well against ferocious attacks. It just goes to show the empire is striking back, and even if they strike out, which they did this week, they'll be back again. And I'm glad that Trump's picks, Pete Hegseth and others, including Bessent, show they can stand the heat because strength is what they're going to need to get things done.
Well, and
then Bessent himself, I love it. Your campaign on making sure reserve currency, that's now part of the lexicon. Great, because that's going to be necessary for the upcoming fights with the Federal Reserve. And getting spending under control, I think there's going to be some progress on that, going against the conventional wisdom. And the big thing on regulations, which is a form of taxation, thankfully, the president looks like he's going to be spending his first 72 hours signing one executive order after another on doing the damage the Bidenites did.
Yeah, shock and awe. It's what they're calling it. And, maybe even Monday, he's going to be in the rotunda of the Capitol because it's going to be indoors now because it's going to be too cold. He can just go and sit in somebody's office and start signing executive orders to protect the border, to deregulate energy, et cetera, et cetera. Be pretty cool, actually.
It would. And, the far left is going to resist, but a lot of this stuff was done at the last minute so he can undo it without any real obstacles. But undoing things like mandating EVs, if you want to buy an EV, fine, but don't be forced to do it as these states are doing, and unleashing the production of energy, key. And one of the things we should keep in mind on energy, China is a big energy importer. Now, they're not going to import directly from us, but when we sell liquefied natural gas, as now we'll be able to do again in the next few years, they'll do it through a third party. But they'll be, in effect, buying energy from the United States, and that's a great position to be in.
Yeah, he was right. Besant said, we're not in a war with clean energy. We're in an energy war, period, as they build coal plants. I thought,
by the way, as he's pointed out, others have pointed out, China's going on a binge of coal-fired new power plants. Hello.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to have to revisit that. Let me take a break, Steve Forbes. Folks, we're talking to the great Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Steve's latest book is Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. There's nobody to give a better world's view than Steve Forbes, in my view. We'll take a quick break. I'm Kudlow. I'll be right back.
This is the Larry Kudlow Show. Now, back to the Larry Kudlow Show.
We are talking to the great Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. And Steve's most recent book is Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. Steve, there was a piece, I guess some tip insights, maybe the old IBD, about Bidenflation, 20%, and the economic carnage it created. That probably, and decisions early in the Biden years for the so-called American Relief Bill, which was $1.9 trillion, and the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act, which was also over $1 trillion. Those decisions in his first 2 years sunk his entire presidency, didn't it? Sunk his entire presidency.
It did indeed. And when you have rising prices and people don't understand why it's happening, when they see firsthand and feel this the fiscal situation, financial situation of the U.S. government is out of control. They don't see real prospects of their improvement in their own lives. And while the rate of increase in prices has come down, prices still haven't come down overall. And as we've discussed, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, leaves out the cost of interest rates, which are still very high on mortgages, credit cards, car loans and the likes, car leases. That means a higher cost of living. So the Biden administration sank itself, and then made worse by the open border policy, unstated but very real, that started to hit cities, and even got the mayor of New York off of his duff and saying, this is not a good situation. Do something about it.
Right. So I'm going to put you as chairman of the Federal Reserve. What do you want? What should they do?
The first thing they should announce is they're no longer going to try to manipulate the economy, fine-tune the economy, thinking that prosperity causes inflation. From now on, we're going to go for a steady value, stable value for the dollar. We're going to do what Greenspan did for a few years, sadly not all the years, of looking at the price of gold, looking at commodity prices, and making sure you have a stable dollar. Just as you want 60 minutes an hour, 12 inches in a foot, you want a stable value of the dollar because the dollar is used for transactions. It measures value. That's what they don't get. It measures value. and it's not a commodity. It measures value. And I think that announcement would take a lot of the air out of all the angst. Is the Fed going to try to slow the economy again? Is the economy overheating and all that kind of nonsense? And as for interest rates, they should say from henceforth, yes, we'll set the federal funds rate, which has very little meaning anymore, but we're going to let the markets, buyers and sellers, just as you want renters and landlords to operate in an open marketplace, so too lenders and borrowers are going to do it in the open marketplace, and the Fed's not going to try to be a central government controlling everything like the old Soviet Union by manipulating interest rates. So your suggestion of maybe giving them a permanent vacation or a long-term vacation is a good one. After they make that announcement, they're no longer going to try to manipulate the economy.
I mean, I love the idea of a commodity price rule. It just looks like right now, looking at the CRB index, commodities are too high. They've actually been rising quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 months. The price of gold is hovering around $2,600 or more. It just looks like all that stuff is too high, and the dollar needs to be revalued against those commodities.
Well, that's right. We want a steady value for the dollar. And you're going to already have a crisis because other countries are mismanaging their money even far worse than we are. And so I think we could see the stage in the next couple of years where countries get together and sort of start to reestablish a regime of fixed rates where instead of the floating we have now, $7 trillion of trading each day in the foreign exchange markets, which is insane. Maybe we can start to get a stable regime again. I hope that happens in the next few years. And that way we don't have to worry the Fed's going to hiccup or Jay Powell has a bad night in bed or something. You know, it's nuts.
I think that, interestingly, Scott Bessent, the new Treasury man, has a pretty good understanding of this value of the dollar in relation to inflation. I mean, he talks about the dollar must maintain reserve currency. Trump agrees with him. I have a feeling he understands that. And I have a feeling he's going to push the Fed in that direction. I don't know whether he'll succeed, Steve Forbes, but I have a feeling he understands that, certainly better than Janet Yellen ever did.
Absolutely. And one of the things I hope the new administration does is when governorships start to open up, even before Powell's term ends in 2026, these seats for governors opened up at the Fed, and they appoint people like Judy Shelton. They won't have a majority, but they will ask the right questions and set the stage for a fundamental overhaul of how the Fed operates. New model for the Fed instead of the broken, discarded one idea that if we do well, that's bad for the economy, a mentality that dominates them today.
Yeah, and I don't want the Fed to make any moves. I mean, really, they should be dormant for a lot of reasons, but let's let the Trump program get through in the next few months, seems to me. I'm worried the Fed, there's tariffs or inflation. Everything's inflationary, the Fed, except when it's not inflationary. Just let the Trump thing get through, and then let's take a look at how the world looks.
Yes, and unfortunately, I think the Fed's going to become a tool for those who want to disrupt the Trump agenda, and that's what we have to be on the watch out for. It's not about the Fed's independence, the fact that they have the wrong models, wrong worldview, and that has to change.
All right, terrific stuff. Steve Forbes is just the best of the best. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.
Folks, we'll take a break, and we'll do some Money in Politics with Liz Peek and Steve Moore. I'm Kudlow. Be right back.